Now, here's the hosts of Top Story, KLIXcast and Jill Skeen.
Good morning and welcome to Top Story, 7360300, always the number to call, and good morning, Benito.
Morning.
Ooh.
It's Monday.
You have the Monday morning blues.
Yeah, it's one of those. Well, it was a lazy Sunday, and I don't think that helped.
Oh, really?
You pay for it the day after, I guess.
Now, I spent a good part of the weekend cleaning my basement.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
You did something productive.
I did, and it really took a lot of gumption to get up and do that, too. But
you did it.
Yeah.
Well, the key is just get rolling with it, right?
Yes, that's it. And once you get going, then you kind of get excited, and with the progress you're making. In fact, earlier this summer, we started with 1 8-yard trash container.
Mm-hmm.
And so we filled it up, and they dumped it, and we filled it up again, and they dumped it, and I'm in the process of filling it for the third
You're
time.
On your third one. Wow. 18 yards.
No,
so
Well, it's an 8-yard.
8-yard.
So we got 16 yards, and then it's probably a third full again, and I'm sure we're going to fill it by the time we're done.
Wow.
So that will be 3 8-yard containers. That's what living in the same place for over 30 years does for you.
I was going to say, you never had a trash can?
Well, besides, I'm the type that hates to throw anything away.
No, I understand. It's like, I might use this someday, and you never do.
But the nice thing of it is when you're going through stuff like that, it's, I wondered what happened to that.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I forgot I had that.
Yeah. With me, it's when I moved, I realized, there it is.
Yeah, exactly.
I needed it then.
In fact, I'm pretty sure there are a couple of boxes, at least, that I went through that haven't been touched since we did move there in 1981.
Wow.
So, anyway. The dangers of a full basement,
Yeah.
You
The
pile
bigger
stuff
house.
up there and leave it. Anyway, welcome to Top Story. Benito setting in this morning for Jill. Jill will be back Wednesday.
All right.
Coming up, we have Randy Staples with the Idaho Political Update. That'll be at 8:40. At 9 o'clock, or actually 9:06 after the news, we have Idaho Governor Butch Otter will be with us.
Okay, Governor.
So it'll be a full day today, and we do have some stuff to talk about today. It's Columbus Day.
It is Columbus Day.
Now, under normal circumstances, many people would be working today, but since it's Columbus Day, the bankers are off. I think the city is closed.
The federal government's
closed, of course. So there are a lot of people who would normally work today that don't have to, since there will be no mail delivery today.
Oh, shoot.
So,
well, good thing I don't expect anything other than bills.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that huge check I was expecting from my rich uncle who passed away won't be coming today.
No.
So, at any rate, speaking of Columbus Day, we'll be talking about this here in a little bit. A lot of towns and areas across the country are opting away from Columbus Day and instead celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day.
Oh, really?
Yes. So what do you think? We'll ask you what you think about that. Is it a little too politically correct?
I'm Indigenous.
Yes, you are.
I was born here.
So was I. I know. But anyway, we'll talk about that coming up. We do have some news to talk about. The director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on Sunday said that more Ebola cases are possible after a healthcare worker at a Dallas hospital tested positive for the deadly virus. The female worker who cared for the first U.S. patient with the disease began showing symptoms on Friday. According to Dr. Tom Frieden, as of Sunday morning, the patient only had mild symptoms, including a low-grade fever. The hospital employee, who has not yet been identified, had extensive contact with Thomas Duncan, the Ebola patient who died last week from the illness. Unfortunately, he said it is possible that we will see additional cases of Ebola because of potential breaches in the use of safety gear. It was initially reported that she was at low risk for contacting the disease, but the CDC said on Sunday that a breach in safety protocol occurred at some point, though the agency is unsure what or how it happened. So
you would think if you're messing with such a deadly disease, you'd be really cautious.
Well, I wonder if this is the woman in the ER who was first contacted by Mr. Duncan when he came there, and he said, I have a fever, and I come from Liberia, and she, I don't know, gave him some medicine and sent him home.
Yeah, you never know.
So that could have been the breach. I don't know if that was the same person or not. I just don't know.
You never know.
But I don't, you would seem... I would think if Ebola was really, and I know it's dangerous, believe me, and I know it's deadly and all this stuff, but
so is the flu.
Well, exactly. And
36,000, I think, last year died.
More, yeah.
From the flu?
We should perhaps be more concerned about the flu or that enterovirus, which actually has killed people, and it is in Idaho, than we should. I mean, we should be concerned about Ebola, don't get me wrong, but we kind of was under the impression that once Ebola strikes in a place, I mean, it's you watch all these contagion type films on TV and think, oh my gosh, we're doomed, we're all
done.
going to die. But and that has been the case a lot of times, I believe. Even with the swine flu, they just knew when the swine flu got started, it was going to wipe out half the population. We're all doomed. We all should run and get vaccinated and all that kind of stuff. And it just never happened. So I don't know that it's really as bad as maybe they thought it was.
Right.
Once we get it in an area where we have better medical facilities and are able to somewhat contain it. So.
Better response to it.
Right, exactly. 736-0300 is the number to call. Top story. You're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Kelly and Benito.
Well, good morning.
My concern, my wife was really upset this morning when she heard that because, of course, they put the blame on the nurse. She did something wrong. And she is a nurse, so she takes that very personally.
Sure,
and,
I don't blame her.
And, that's an easy out to say that they did something wrong in protocol instead of saying we're wrong about how it's contracted.
Yeah, that's an
Because,
excellent point.
How many people right now do we know of that have been in these suits that they're blaming protocol on that have gotten, 5, 6?
Yeah, and in fact, I even heard that some of these suits were made poorly. Some of them didn't fit. So I don't know if they got them from China or where they got them, but
I think they don't really know how it's contracted, and it keeps evolving. It keeps evolving fast.
I think
the
you're right.
only way to contain this is to contain it and let it die out. But no, we're going to let it spread by bringing people around, letting them go here and there. I mean, it's crazy. This is going to get ugly before it gets better.
You could very well be right. I think that they are still learning about this disease because I don't think they've had a real good learning environment in some of these third world countries where this stuff has been happening. Now that they get it into the United States where we have better medical facilities and better protocols and such, and it's still spreading. And in fact, I read something last week where one of the scientists said that we're kind of standing back and rethinking some of the ways that this disease is spread. So it could get interesting. It could.
Well, I remember do you remember when the last major outbreak was? Have you read anything about that?
Of Ebola?
Yeah.
No,
I haven't either.
I know it's when it happens in some of these other countries, we don't pay that much attention to it.
No, we don't. And
I think the reason we're all talking about it now is because it is in the United States. So I don't know. I don't have the answers. I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens, like everybody else.
Yeah. What can you do, really?
Right. Nothing you can do except wash your hands, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, here's something that maybe we should be concerned about with the Ebola situation. It's threatening much of the world's chocolate supply.
What? Really?
Yeah. Ivory Coast, the world's largest producer of cacao, the raw ingredient in M&M's, Butterfingers, and Snickers bars, has shut down its borders with Liberia and Guinea, putting a major crimp on the workforce needed to pick the beans that end up in chocolate bars and other treats just as the harvest season begins. The West African nation of about 20 million, also known as Côte d'Ivoire,
I think it's French.
the Ivory Coast, must be. I'm probably mispronouncing that, too. has yet to experience a single case of Ebola, but the outbreak already could raise prices. So that's when stuff gets real.
Yeah,
That's when the
when it
chocolate
messes
prices
with your
start
sweets.
to rise. Yeah, that's right. And have you noticed lately when you go to buy a candy bar, they keep getting smaller and smaller instead of the price going up? You can still buy a Hershey's bar for 99 cents, but it's to the point. It's like, wait a minute.
It's a bite
Did
size.
this thing shrink?
I remember
Yeah.
Snickers being a foot long.
Exactly.
No, but
Yeah. And in other news, Army officials have confirmed an initial report has been turned in on the investigation into Sergeant Bo Bergdahl. Officials released the statement. The Army is in receipt of the initial report and reviewing it. As we stressed at the onset, this will be a lengthy process conducted in accordance with applicable laws, regulation, and policy. We recognize the importance of the media and the public understanding of our investigative process and look forward to future discussions on the issue. However, the Army's priority is ensuring that our process is thorough, factually accurate, impartial, and legally correct. Consequently, at this time, it would be inappropriate to speculate on the potential results or the amount of time the review process will take to complete. So there
they
you
really
go.
didn't say anything about the report.
Exactly. Bergdahl, as you will know, is a native of Haley, held prisoner by the Taliban for almost 5 years before he was released this last May as part of a controversial prisoner swap. Some soldiers who served with Bergdahl have accused him of abandoning his post hours before he was captured. Investigators will decide if he should face desertion charges. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out and how long it takes.
Yeah.
A lot of people are anxious for that report,
I think they are, what they'll find.
including the Bergdahls and probably Bo
yeah.
Bergdahl himself. But
They really haven't even said if they've visited with each other yet.
I know.
His folks and him. And they may have, and they just kept it really quiet.
That
which
I
is
can't
fine.
imagine not meeting at this point.
Yeah.
But you're right. They could have done it in secret, and who knows?
Mm-hmm.
So now, today is Columbus Day, and here's what we're going to talk about until Randy Staples comes in. It often brings to mind the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, like we all learned in school, right?
Right.
Well, today, some cities and states would rather you think of the Sioux, the Suquamish, and the Chippewa. For the first time this year, Seattle and Minneapolis are recognizing the second Monday in October today as Indigenous Peoples Day. The cities join a growing list of jurisdictions choosing to shift the holiday's focus from Christopher Columbus to the people he encountered in the New World and their modern-day descendants. So what do you think of this? Are we getting a little bit on the too much on the politically correct side, or is this the right thing to do? 7360300 is the number to call, and we'll talk about it when we come back after the break. 7360300 is the number to call here this morning on Top Story. Welcome back. And what's that?
Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Bonito. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
No, my brain's not working this morning.
You won't have to worry about this, but for today and tomorrow.
Okay.
And then Jill will be back.
Well, I still have to be doing the news in the morning, and that was a train wreck, so.
All righty then. Well, hey, I wanted to say that the folks at Canyon Pond would like you to stop by. And I think today being Columbus Day, I'm pretty sure they're open today.
I think most general businesses are.
I think so, too. Yeah.
Government related.
I agree. Canyon Pond has guns, and they have camping stuff, and they have woodworking stuff and fishing poles and tools. Anything you can imagine that a pawn shop has, they have it. They're the newest pawn shop in town. And they're nice and clean, and they're at the corner of, don't tell me, Shoshone and 3rd Avenue South, right across from Will's Toyota.
Right there.
It's a neat store, though. You really do need to stop in and see Dave Hansen and the crew. It's just fun. Pawn shops are always fun places to go.
Oh, yeah. You go in, you're like, can I really use this?
Yeah, that's you can see stuff that you really can't live without.
Yeah.
You know? And then if it's not there today, it'll probably be there tomorrow because the inventory is changing all the time.
Yeah.
So stop by and say howdy, 933-2600 if you're looking for anything particular. Just stop in and say hi and tell them that Kelly and Benito sent you. Okay, so today is Columbus Day. What do you think? Should we be celebrating Columbus Day or should we be celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day? The Seattle City Council voted last week to reinvent the holiday to celebrate the thriving cultures and values of Indigenous peoples in our region. The Minneapolis City Council approved a similar measure in April to reflect upon the ongoing struggles of Indigenous people on this land, and to celebrate the thriving culture and value that Dakota Ojibwa, boy, I know I'm not pronouncing that right.
Yeah, Ojibwa.
Ojibwa? Mm-hmm. Is that how it is? Mm-hmm. And other indigenous nations add to our city. Now, I know that the Native Americans, the Indians, as we refer to them in this country, really got screwed when we took the land over. I know that. It is a part of history. But I think if you look back in history, almost every aspect of every part of humanity has been trampled on at one time or another by some other aspect.
Somebody in somewhere.
That's right, somebody somewhere. So now we're saying that, we should ignore this Columbus guy because as the result of him discovering the New World, then the Native Americans got trampled by the Europeans, which would be us.
If it wasn't Columbus, it would have been somebody else.
You know, it would have been. It would have been absolutely.
The British, the French, Portuguese.
It's part of our history. Now they're saying, it's almost like they're trying to strip our identity. You know, we can't celebrate Columbus Day. God forbid that we celebrate Christmas anymore because of various reasons. And I know we're a ways out from Christmas yet, so I don't want to get on that one.
But it's pretty close.
But you know, every time we turn around, we're being bashed upon by trampling somebody or just ruining somebody. I mean, it's just like we're the dastardly Americans who have ruined the world, you know? And I'm kind of getting tired of that. I say let's go with Columbus Day and call it good. 736-0300 is the number to call. Top story, you're on the air.
Good morning. I am getting so fed up with this political correct. You know, you got a small group out there trying to strip our history and our Constitution, and we're allowing it to happen. And somewhere we're going to have to put down our feet and say no. You said it just a little while ago. Me and my father had this discussion a while back. You name me one country or anything right now that wasn't taken by force once upon a time. It's happening right now in the United States. ISIS is trying to take over. There's a lot of people trying to take over right now. And it happens, and the weak fall, and the strong survive.
Yep.
It's the story of our life. It's the story of the world. I mean, and it is written down. We know what happened. Why change it? I don't understand it. You're just trying to brainwash people into not what history was.
Yeah, and they're trying to strip us of our identity and of our history, and pretty soon there will be a group who will want us to tear down the Statue of Liberty, and
because it was given to us by the French.
Yeah, that's right, and it was supposed to be some slap in the face. Now, I was reading here the other day how the Statue of Liberty was a slap in the face to America from the French, and nobody realizes it, and all this garbage that you hear about all the time. So, you know, hey, it's Columbus Day. We've celebrated it since I can remember in school. I mean, we learned the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria. You know, we sang the Columbus song in 1492. Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but apparently we can't do that now. Top story, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yeah, good day, mate.
G'day.
It's the same as down under. You know, we took. It's much the same with the Aborigines. You know, we stole their land fair and square, but we don't apologize for it down under as much as you blokes do for whatever reason. For one thing, a lot of us, we've got at least one ancestor that what we say is caught the ship, that usually committed a misdemeanor in merry old England or Ireland or someplace in the British Empire.
Hey,
said,
can you hang on?
You're going to Australia.
I got to go to a break. Can you hold on a minute?
Sure.
All right, we'll be right back. 7360300 is the number to call here this morning on Top Story. Welcome back. Coming up here in the next segment, we'll talk to Randy Staples with the Idaho political update. And then at 9:06, we have Idaho Governor Butch Otter. So stay tuned for that. Infrared Baron, you've heard me talking about that from Far More of Idaho. It's a way that they have of flying over your fields, taking infrared images, uploading them to your computer, and then you can see how your irrigation system is doing. Now you're thinking, well, gee, it's fall now, and we're kind of getting done of irrigating crops. Well, we got the next season coming up, so this would be a great time to get a hold of the folks at Far More of Idaho and get involved in this program, because it doesn't cost, it pays. It's Infrared Baron. You can tell by the infrared photos how your crops are doing based on your irrigation system, and then you can go in and make changes. You may think it's doing all right.
Right.
But when you see it from the air, from infrared, you can see that it's not.
Different perspective.
That's right. You can make all kinds of adjustments, increase your yield, and more than pay for the cost of these overflights. Get a hold of Far More of Idaho. They're at 324-3341 or farmoreofidaho.com. All right. Hey, thanks for holding on. So you say in Australia, which obviously you are from, they did the same with the Aborigines there.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, I mean, we came over. The Dutch discovered it, said there's no good to be done here. The English came there. Captain Cook said, well, I think we can do some good, but it's a rough place. So I'm sure that, as you know, it's due to our convict past. Almost everyone in Australia, except recent immigrants, has a convict in their well, let's call it a pedigree. I know where mine came from, but it was called catching the ship, and most of the crimes were misdemeanors, what would be called misdemeanor. But it was in the British Empire they weren't exactly nice blokes, so they said, "You're going to Australia, mate."
Yeah.
And we don't apologize. We don't apologize for it. Yeah, it was terrible. We did a lot of wrong to the Aborigines, but you know what? Not exactly as if I bought a ticket here.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And you still have to live together, right?
Benito, they want to blame old Chris there. Old Chris was an Italian. He was working for the Spanish. I know Benito's told me in the past he's from New Mexico. So how do the people with a Hispanic surname, how do they feel about it? Gosh, the Spanish treated the Native Americans pretty harshly.
Oh yeah,
and
they did.
And so is it like, well, hey, now wait, mate. If it wasn't for the Spanish, I'd probably my last name wouldn't be Vallejo.
No, it wouldn't be. I mean, it's just, of course, it's the way it goes. There's good and bad to everything, and it's the same thing there.
Everything, everybody, every place has a history, and that's just the way it is. Hey, thanks for your call. I appreciate that. And that's a good point too. But there's always, I don't know, for lack of a better word, do-gooders who want to go back into history and try to make everything right for everybody. They wanted to...
You can't correct history.
No, you can't. They wanted to go back and spend hundreds of millions of dollars in paying the Japanese because we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And every once in a while, somebody will come up with this bright idea, we should really pay this group of people for all the wrong done to them, like how many decades or centuries ago. And I didn't have anything to do with it. You didn't have anything to do with it, but it's just history. It happened, and you can't rewrite the books, even though you try.
Right.
And so, you know what? Today is Columbus Day. It's the day that we celebrate for Columbus discovering the Americas, and I think that's the way it should stay. 7360300, top story, you're on the air.
Yes, you just brought up an interesting subject I was going to call you on. We are still paying for them, for us taking over their land, because we still pay billions of dollars to them. And just look at Fort Hall Casino and see how they live. And each children that is born Indian, any blood Indian, they get a check every year. It doesn't matter how long it's been, but we still support them. So if we're not celebrating Columbus Day, then we should stop supporting them and giving them money every time.
Yeah, I know. As far as, we made certain treaties with them, and we broke those treaties. We were supposed to pay them apparently for a lot of land that we never paid for, or mineral rights, or whatever it was. I'm really not too sure of the history. I'm kind of the opinion that if we made those agreements with them and we broke the agreements, then we need to honor those. But as far as just going back and picking a group of people, and, well, for instance, the Japanese, I mean, sure, it was horrible what happened in Japan. It was a horrible way to end the war, but it worked. And that was the thinking of the day, and that was history. And
somebody had to make a decision.
That's right. How many more people would have died horrible deaths had the war continued? Now they wanted to pay these Japanese people for the horrors of World War II. Well, you know what? I'm against that. Sorry, it's just war is war and war is hell. So
happy Columbus Day.
Happy Columbus Day, everybody. 736-0300 is the number to call. We'll have Randy Staples up next, right here on Top Story. 736-0300 is the number to call here this morning on Top Story. And once a week at this time, we have Randy Staples from Reidenbaugh Press at reidenbaugh.com with the Idaho Political Update. Good morning, Randy.
Good morning.
Well, thanks for joining us again today. I know in your update you had quite a little explanation of the recent gay marriage ruling that the courts, I guess, made or didn't make. Can you kind of go through that?
Well, it got kind of complicated last week.
It did. Yeah, it did. So could you kind of go through that process and kind of tell us where we stand now?
Sure. What I was writing about mainly was the decision from the main decision that kind of triggered all the rest of it last week from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, the federal appeals court that the Idaho Federal District Court appeals to. And what it basically did was to throw out Idaho's and Nevada's, they were linked together, laws and provisions that ban same-sex marriage. The problem that the states have at this point is that they're they're having to walk a road that has gotten so narrow and so rickety that it becomes very nearly impossible. And when Justice Scalia, after one of the Supreme Court decisions a couple of years ago, said that this will pretty much inevitably lead to same-sex marriage being legalized nationally, there were a lot of people who often disagree with Scalia but agreed with him on his analysis of that, and I thought that he was correct as well. There's very little basis that a state can take under the Supreme Court's rules to support it. You can't say that the Supreme Court's made it clear that you cannot say that gay people are in any sense second-class citizens. They're citizens like every other citizen. And extending that, it said that you can't say that their relationships are second-class, are any less than anyone else's. So when you do that, there's very little basis then left for banning same-sex marriage. And there are a number of states, like Nevada, which was linked to Idaho, where the state officials basically just kind of gave up on it and said it can't be done. There's no legal basis for this. Oregon said the same thing. In Idaho, was determined to try to find a grounds for doing that. It mainly some of the key grounds were along the lines of, same-sex marriage might be harmful for children, or same-sex marriage might somehow impair or impact on opposite-sex marriage, traditional marriage. But the Ninth Circuit pretty much wiped out both of those. It said that there was no basis, there had been no studies found, no convincing evidence that children are harmed by same-sex marriage, and on damaging opposite-sex marriage, they had a great quote. They had it was in a footnote. They noted that Governor Otter, who I guess you'll be having on here shortly,
right.
This is the quote, that Otter also states in conclusory fashion that allowing same-sex marriage will lead opposite-sex couples to abuse alcohol and drugs, engage in extramarital affairs, take on demanding work schedules, and participate in time-consuming hobbies. We seriously doubt that allowing committed same-sex couples to settle down in legally recognized marriages will drive opposite-sex couples to sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah, I read
that. It even kind of made light of the argument to that point, and that's more or less where the law stands at this point. After having been appealed to the Supreme Court, got a brief stay, it's probably within a day or two, once the courts reopen after the holidays tomorrow. Very likely in Idaho, you will have the county clerks open for business for same-sex couples to get to be issued licenses.
And there was already the one up in the northern county that opened up on Friday and started issuing license. Do you think they'll see a hookup?
Right,
come
up in
Tuesday,
Latah County, there were several, I think a half dozen licenses that were issued. That was legally that was a mistake. They had not heard about the little glitch in the system, which was that after Justice Kennedy issued his stay, holding off implementation of the Ninth Circuit decision, the Ninth Circuit followed up and said, okay, since there's a Supreme Court hold on this, so that we're not in conflict, we're going to issue a hold too. So for this to go into effect, they need to withdraw their hold. They almost certainly will, but they need to formally do that.
Okay. So are we at the end of the trail then as far as fighting the gay marriage issue here in Idaho?
I think it probably pretty much is. In fact, the governor's statement at the end of last week on Friday, after the Supreme Court refused to take the appeal and lifted its stay, as I read it, and I'm sure you'll ask the governor this to see whether this is correct, but my understanding was that he said we did what we thought we had to do, we fought the fight, but this is the end of it, and we need to just have be calm, be civil, and move on from here.
Yeah. Well, the campaign continues. Apparently, I think I have this right. Treasurer Ron Crane had to drop out of the first debate with Deb Silver because of a voice issue. And I think the next debate is tonight, and I think they rescheduled that one for Thursday.
That's my understanding as well. Yeah, it's that. At least that's what everybody seems to be saying at this point. And let's hope that there's a debate, because it would certainly be an interesting one.
Absolutely, no question about that. In fact, do you remember when the treasurer's race in Idaho was this, for lack of a better word, interesting?
That's always a loaded word. It is. Yeah, I can't think of another one. I think about the only really interesting races or the relatively interesting races for state treasurer in Idaho, going back the last half century and more, have been basically when the office has been open, right, and that was when that last occurred when Lydia Justice Edwards decided to retire, and that was when Ron Crane won the office in the Republican primary, but it was a pretty low-key primary. Yeah. And then Marjorie Ruth Moon, the last Democrat to hold it, departed, and there was a contest, but not really that contentious a contest, and not really that high profile. This is, I think, the highest profile treasurer's race that Idaho has had in the last half century, at least.
Yeah, I think if nothing else, it brought to the attention of most Idahoans that the treasurer's position is an elected position in the state of Idaho.
Well, it's the first time, really, that the real work of the state treasurer has come up for much discussion.
That's true.
Usually, it traditionally over the decades, the work has just kind of gone. The work of managing the money, investing the money, doing all of those kinds of things, it's just kind of gone on quietly and not been much debate or discussion about it. And now there actually is some discussion about the actual work of the office, how the money is managed, how it is invested, and so on. Yeah. And that can be quite a good civics lesson, I think, for a lot of Idahoans.
Absolutely, no question. We got a caller here. Let's take that top story. Whoop. Okay, here. I guess they decided they didn't have a question after all of that, or you answered it for them.
Or they lost the line.
That's right. Speaking of the primary election, Secretary of State candidate Lawrence Denny said he would like to eliminate the primaries
stating that it should be up to the parties to run primaries since they are choosing their candidates rather than be run by the state. Does he have a point?
Well, primaries are used for quite a few things, and which he later on acknowledged, other than just the Republican and Democratic selections for their nominees. They're also used for some ballot issues in various places, for a number of nonpartisan offices like judges. A lot of judges are, if they get 50% in the primary, they can they're elected. They don't even go on to the general election. There are a number of things that primaries are used for apart from that. And I think he may have kind of either misspoke to begin with or may have thought better about it afterwards in terms of thinking about that. But of course, even allowing for that explanation, what he's basically calling for is both parties to close their primaries, as the Republicans have done. That would seem to be part of it, and then also calling for the parties to separately pay for the election or their part of the election. And that could be, I'm not sure that either party would be terribly thrilled about either of those ideas.
But when you stop and think about it on a national basis, we have the Republicans who, with the Republican National Convention, they choose their presidential and vice presidential candidates. The Democrats do the same thing. I'm wondering if he wasn't kind of getting on that same line of thinking, only do it on a statewide basis.
Well, there could be something to that. I mean, there are lots of ways that you can handle some of these kinds of things. For example, the Democrats in Idaho have elect their convention delegates, which right. gets down to their presidential choices in caucuses. They have caucuses all over the state, and that is how they do it. And those candidates are on the ballot in the primary election, but that doesn't really have any practical effect. Those are only numbers that are maybe of interest, but they don't have anything to do with Idaho's vote at the National Convention.
Yeah. True.
So yeah, there are lots of different ways that these things can be done. You could, if you wanted to increase the party's power in all of this. Another way that you can go is to require that you get a certain amount of that candidates get a certain amount of support in their state conventions. Utah Republicans do that, for example, and that was how one of their recent U.S. senators was tossed out. Was that he failed to get sufficient support at the state convention.
Interesting stuff, politics, huh?
Yeah, lots of different possible ways to go at it.
Now, one of the things that I was reading this morning, and I knew this was going on it's called Choke Point. Republican senators on the Senate Banking Committee sent a letter to the Department of Justice demanding answers regarding a Department of Justice-led effort that is negatively impacting law-abiding and legitimate businesses by choking them off from the banking sector, known as Operation Choke Point. And this has been used recently, I know, for businesses dealing in guns and ammunition. And Senator Crapo apparently is on kind of a path to help avoid this. Has this been a big issue in the past, and do you think it'll be a bigger issue in the future?
Haven't seen too much of it in the past, and I'm not sure what it necessarily involves at present or how widespread it is. If it's done in a way that is aimed basically to get after racketeering businesses or certain limited categories of businesses, then there may be some legitimacy there, and there may be something that's useful and proper. If it extends much broader than that, just to ordinary businesses, then that's another matter. And certainly Crapo's well positioned on Senate Finance to be able to look into that. And we'll see. I'm sure we will probably be seeing a little bit more of that, a little bit more about this over the next couple of weeks. We'll see how extensive it is. If it's very narrow, it's probably not a very big deal. But if it's being used a lot, then that may be another matter.
Yeah. Well, I think it started a couple of years ago. I think Bank of America started it first, and then a couple of others followed. But again, we're out of time, so we won't be able to discuss it more here. But Randy, I want to thank you for your time, and we will talk to you next Monday right here at the same time, same station.
We will talk to you then.
All right. Thanks, Randy.
Randy Staples from Reidenbaugh Press at Reidenbaugh.com. You can go to his website, Reidenbaugh.com, and subscribe to his weekly update, and you can hear him right here each weekday on Top Story. Well, I should say each Monday on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX. We have Idaho Governor Butch Otter this next hour here on Top Story. Well, good morning and welcome back to Top Story. 7360300 is always the number to call, and welcome back, Benito.
Well, thank you. I was going to say welcome back. I'm the guest.
You know, it's it's a little chilly this morning.
A little bit.
A while ago it was 39.
Yeah.
And it looks like it got down, well, it looks like 39 was the low.
Wow.
That's the first.
Well, they had a freeze warning for the northeast part of the Magic Valley.
Did they now? I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. So out there in the desert, pretty much.
Okay. I don't know. We were supposed to have the governor on, and my cell phone is ringing, and we're not getting the call on the hotline.
We need it on the hotline.
I can't answer the cell phone because I'm on the air.
And it's probably a telemarketer anyways calling you.
I know. It could be. So I don't know. I don't know what's happening here. I just now gave him I gave him the number for the hotline. So I'm kind of in a pickle here.
A pickle.
I don't know what to do.
Well, I like pickles, but not when it's a situation.
Anyway, the last time we wanted to have the governor on, our telephones went on the fritz. Actually, it was CenturyLink.
Oh, it was the whole the system provider.
Yeah, and they somehow clicked a different click for us on the system, and it changed our whole configuration. Why it happened at that particular point, I don't know. But
maybe does Beluga? Maybe he's sabotaging.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. So anyway, I'm going to check my phone here real quick, maybe for an updated email.
Okay. See if anything came in from the officials.
And maybe the governor had something come up.
Yeah, things do come up in government.
I know.
But the government's closed today. It's Columbus Day, as we've discussed.
Well, and maybe that's another issue. Maybe it's because it's closed today. So anyway, so we'll sit here and wait for the governor to call then.
Okay. All right.
See, the last time I had it fixed up so I had a backup number to call him, but I couldn't call out either. He couldn't call in, and I couldn't call out. So,
well, he wasn't actually supposed to walk through the door, was he?
No.
Okay.
No, this was supposed to be an on-the-phone discussion.
Okay. Let's hope they didn't think that. He's at the front door, and we don't know it.
You want to go out there and check the
I guess I
front door?
could.
Yeah. In fact, why don't you do that?
Okay, here I go. We'll check. You never know.
I know. Okay, you know what? I'm going to take this call because I'm pretty sure it's him. So, all right. This is Kelly. Oh, did you call the number I gave, 208-736-0300? I see. Okay, it's 000. Okay, thanks. Appreciate that. All right. Okay. He had the wrong number.
Oh, it happens.
Okay.
There's so many numbers.
Live radio, ladies and gentlemen. You got to love it. You just got to love it. All right. Top story. Good morning. Is this the governor?
It's not.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got to let you go then. Okay. I'm waiting for the governor to call. All right. Good morning. Is this Governor Otter?
This is himself, Kelly. I'm sorry.
Man. No.
We got those numbers inverted somehow.
I apologize because I know the last time we were supposed to have you on, CenturyLink messed us up, and we didn't have any phone service. You couldn't call us, and we couldn't call you. So
the telegraph may have worked.
Yeah, there you go. Well, anyway, I appreciate you persisting, and thanks for being on the show here this morning.
You bet. Glad to be with you, Kelly.
We wanted to talk a bit about the same-sex marriage issue since that just happened. A lot of people are wondering why Idaho fought the fight for as long as it did under your leadership, given the fact that
most other states were getting shot down all along. Could you explain that?
Well, that doesn't change our Constitution, Kelly. In 2006, the people of Idaho went to the polls, and in a huge majority adopted Article 3, Section 28 of the Idaho Constitution, which defines marriage in Idaho as a union between one man and one woman. When I took the oath of office 4 years ago, 2 months from now, I swore to uphold the Constitution of the state of Idaho, as did Attorney General Wasden, as did every constitutional officer. And so, as a result, we can't just go by what happens in some other state. And that's one part of it, Kelly. The other part of it is, why would we surrender our Constitution in the state of Idaho without a fight to one man in a black robe?
Yeah. Does this mean, is this the end of our fight now, or do we still have some other avenues?
Well, I haven't talked to the Attorney General since the mandate came down. And so as of tomorrow morning, I suppose, the clerks in Idaho will be obligated under this ruling to issue marriage licenses.
Okay. So as it stands now, then nothing is planned unless something is planned upon
Kelly,
this week.
I say again, I've got to consult with the Attorney General.
Yeah.
But we've run our course in our state federal with our district judge here in the state. We run our course in the 9th district all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was the Supreme Court that basically lifted the stay.
Right.
My understanding is we petitioned Justice Kennedy, and my understanding is that he met with the entire court, and they lifted the stay.
Okay.
So now, know this, though. Around the United States, there are other states in court in their districts. And so if one ripens enough, if one of these cases ripens enough to get to the Supreme Court, that question will still be coming up.
Okay. Because actually, now the Supreme Court actually hasn't ruled yet on the constitutionality of this. They've kind of been putting it off. So I guess there's always that last step.
Well, and the main question is always going to go back to whose dominion is this?
Right.
The police power of the United States, Kelly, has always been the dominion of the states, and part of that state's police power is the regulation, including the regulation of marriage. And so, as a result, we believe, unfortunately, our merits of our case didn't carry the day, but we believe that when Idahoans decide in huge numbers like they did in 2006 that we wanted to modify our Constitution to ensure what our definition of marriage was and would it survive, then, like I said before, I just can't surrender the state's Constitution to a judge in a black robe without a fight.
Yeah, okay. Well, before we get into the other stuff, how is the campaign going?
Campaign is going good. We're getting around the state. We're about ready to take off on our bus tour. We're 22 days out, and we think we're doing great. But no matter what the polls show, we always work like we're 10 points behind.
Yeah, exactly. When you travel around the state, what are the constituents saying that they are most concerned about?
Well, they're concerned about whether or not the economy is going to continue to grow. Last year, between February of 2013 and February of 2014, Idaho had the fastest growth in personal income. We were number one in the nation in the personal income economic indicator. And they want to know that that's going to continue because young folks are coming up. They're wanting to buy a house. Older folks may be wanting to make a make a change in their life, and they just want to know what kind of economic certainty we can look forward to in Idaho. And I believe as long as we continue the course in maintaining an environment in Idaho that capital is safe and people who have an operation in Idaho and want to grow, Idaho is the place to grow because their capital is what will happen to their company is predictable. We're not going to change the laws every few minutes, number one, and number two, we're not going to raise taxes at the first whim. Gosh, Kelly, when we came through that recession, if there was ever there was a lot of temptation to raise taxes, and we resisted that, and I'm thankful we did, which is why we're the fifth fastest growing economy in the United States. We're only led by natural resource states like Wyoming, North Dakota, West Virginia, and Oklahoma. And so I think people want to know, is there certainty? And I'm telling them, as long as I'm governor, I'm going to continue to govern exactly the way we have been. And we're going to implement our 5-year 20 recommendation plan to reform education in Idaho, and all systems are go.
As far as the reforming Idaho, now I know that your opponent, Mr. Belukoff, is hammering away at the Idaho education system. We have so many graduates that are not going on to college. We have those who do, a lot of them have to take remedial courses. He claims Idaho is losing a lot of good teachers to states with better pay, and in general claiming that Idaho's education system is worse than it was before you took office. How do you respond to that?
Well, I reject the notion that he and a lot of other folks are saying all the good teachers have left the state. I reject that. There are a lot of good teachers in Idaho, and they're performing well in the classroom. What we need to do is to give them the tools, the professional training, the career ladder, the ability to grow in their job. Kelly, I reject it. There are a lot of good teachers in Idaho, and I run into them every day. And they're proud of their job, and they're proud of the fact that we're working hard in order to improve the education system. What Mr. Belukoff and my other detractors are not telling you is that where he's complaining is that we're not spending enough money. Well, we've always looked at it. It's not how much money you spend; it's how you spend the money. And we're down low when it comes to the amount of money we put behind each student. But look where we are in performance. We're tied 8th in the nation for 8th grade reading, 15th in the nation for math, and that's the grades that you get at where you know you're making a difference. And so, he's an accountant, and accountants can kind of tell you what you want to hear.
Governor, we have a break. Can you stay through the break?
Sure.
Okay, we'll be right back with Idaho Governor Butch Otter, Republican candidate for re-election here on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX. 7360300 is the number to call here this morning on Top Story. Welcome back. And by the way, Friday's $100 instant winning name was Wilbur Farnworth.
Wilbur Farnworth.
And your $100 word of the day for today is zombie.
Zombie.
Yeah.
Must be Halloween coming.
It must be. Yeah. You have until midnight tonight to go to our website at newsradio1310.com. Click on word of the day, type in zombie, ZOMBIE. And then listen tomorrow. And if you hear your name tomorrow and you played the word today, you'll win $100, just like that.
Hey, but you got to play.
Yes. Republican Idaho Governor Butch Otter is our guest this morning, running for re-election. Governor, if you are re-elected, what plans do you have for the state for the next 4 years?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we're going to continue to do is continue to grow the economy by preparing a workforce that folks are prepared to put to work. Certainly, the insurance, or pardon me, the 20 recommendations that have been made by my task force on education to improve education will help us build a good workforce in Idaho. And so continuing to grow the economy and implementing the task force on education are my two primary objectives for this next term.
I know a lot of people are complaining about Idaho has so many people on minimum wage. Do you think your education plan will help resolve that?
Well, certainly. To the extent that we can prepare a workforce for those folks that want to come in, I'm Kelly. Every one of our labor reports that we have come in almost every month, we not only get the amount of unemployment in Idaho, which, by the way, has dropped from almost 9% to 4.7%. We also get how many jobs we can't fill. And so when we're at about 4.7% unemployment, we probably got pretty close to 33,000 people out of work. And yet we find that there's about 18 to 20,000 jobs that we can't fill. And we can't fill them because they don't have the skills that those folks want. That's why we created the College of Western Idaho. That's why we bolstered up the College of Southern Idaho and the College of Northern Idaho in order to prepare those education portals so that they can prepare the workforce that's needed to fill those jobs.
What about the backlog of road and bridge repair that needs to be done? Do we have a plan that you're looking at to help pick up that backlog?
Well, as you know, has been in the news quite a little bit. We put together an effort with the Louise and Jim McClure Center up at the University of Idaho to ask folks if they felt that our roads were in bad shape. And the word came back, yes, but our state roads weren't in near as bad a shape as our counties and city roads. And so we needed to do more work on those. The poll also showed that we had pretty good roads for right now, but out into the future, maybe a few years, even the state roads needed some attention. So I took all that information to the legislature, and I will tell you that the legislature is now working on deciphering that, and probably going to have hearings around the state to see not only how much money we have to collect, but where we can collect it.
What about the takeover by the state of federal lands? I know the legislative committee just wrapped up a hearing in Haley this last week, and it indicated, which is not surprising, that most of the people did not want the state to take over federal lands. But I know that has been brewing for some time. Do you think it's economically feasible and even in other ways feasible for the state to do that?
Well, Kelly, if you're on maybe a 50-year transition, I would say it's possible. But you're going to have to grow into it. Here's just a couple of figures, Kelly. We have in Idaho, in the endowment and the lands department in Idaho, about 900 to 1 million acres of forested land in the state. And we harvest roughly 325 million board feet off of just that 1 million acres. There are 12 million acres of harvestable timber, federal timber, in the 10 national forests in Idaho. So off of that 1 million acres right now, with 325 million board feet, we have about 34 mills operating in the state. In order to consume all the lumber that would come off of all 12 million acres, look how much capitalization you got to have.
Yeah.
Because these mills cost $125 million a piece. So, when you think about it, it's a great idea. Yeah, we'd like to, because that way we can control our own destiny. I've been working on a plan, and I think it's coming to fruition with the Department of Agriculture at the federal level to take over management of 1,800,000 acres in Idaho. And I believe we can grow it. We can do two things. Number one, we can grow into our ability to manage and have the expertise to manage. And number two, we can convince the people of the United States that we're not going to abuse the lands.
Yeah, I know that's one of the main concerns.
We're going to treat them for fire, And that's probably the final thing, and that's fire. 3 years ago,
Governor, we're out of time. I hate to turn you loose, but I told you we'd let you go at 9:30, and we thank you for talking to us today.
All right.
Thanks.
Us a lot of money to fight fire.
I hear
Kelly.
you. Thank you.
For the time.
You betcha.
You
All right. Governor Butch Otter.
7360300 is the number to call here on Top Story. Welcome back. Again, want to thank Governor Butch Otter for we had kind of a rocky start there with the mix-up in the numbers to call.
All it takes is one number.
Man, I'll tell you what, and I hated that happen, but you know what? This is live radio, and it happened, and you just deal with it, and you move on. Yeah. That's right. By the way, we're coming into the winter season now, and hopefully this winter we'll have lots of precipitation. But when you have a lot of precipitation, a lot of snow, melting snow, rain, stuff like that, then you generally have a little more of a concern of manure on large feedlots or dairy operations. But that's not a problem either, because Stanley and Company has the Lowen Honey Loader. And we've been talking about this. It loads all types of manure. Hello.
Manure.
I'll get it out here in a minute. Liquid to frozen or dry.
Okay.
And it does it up to 7 miles an hour, which is pretty fast, especially if you're scooping that stuff by hand. 7 miles an hour is blisteringly fast.
Well, it says frozen, too. I know that, ground can get pretty hard.
Yes, it can.
So
these are quite the machine. And I know that a lot of people who might think this would be of use for them on their operation, you might have questions about it. That's okay. You can get a hold of Pat Hartzell, and he can line you up so you can see one of these actually in operation. You can kick the tires and talk to the owner, and you have questions, you can find out everything about it. At 280-1167 is the number. Pat Hartzell at 280-1167. That is his personal cell, and he will do for you whatever he can to make this happen. All right, so the governor, when we were talking to him, mentioned a little bit about the legislative committee that's looking into management of federal lands. In fact, that was his comment there at the last. We had our next to the last hearing in Twin Falls on Friday that mostly favored leaving them in federal hands.
Just let it be, right?
Right, to let it be. People have always raised concerns about, well, gee, if we take it over as a state, then we'll sell it to the highest bidder, and that means that all these federal lands that have been preserved for all these years will just be sold to developers, and we'll put up condos, and then that'll lock people out who can't afford the condo, So there's been quite a lot of argument over this. Plus, not only that, but fighting, as the governor mentioned there when he was leaving, fighting fires on federal land.
It cost money.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So the question is, and I know I've talked to a lot of people who say, no, we can do this. We can take over these federal lands. We can handle them. We can manage them. We can afford them. So what do you think? This has been a conversation for quite some time now. And I believe there's in the Constitution somewhere that we can't do that. So there are a lot of hoops that would have to be jumped through before we could do that. But as any law, you can change it, right, if you have enough people who agree to it. So, but kind of wondering, do you want us to take over the federal lands, or do you want to leave them as it is? Or maybe there's even an in-between there. Well, maybe we could help manage them more, which I think is kind of the one I'm leaning toward. We can help to manage more, but when we have devastating fires, we still have federal help to fight them. 736-0300 is the number. Top Story, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning. I think we should take them over. I mean, fire-wise, I've been in the garden and everything else, and I've done the fires. You about want to pull your hair out about the money they waste. Let's take away some of the red tape. I mean, let some of these farmers with discs, dozers, and anything else, contractors, jump in on it. I mean, we can do it for cheaper than the government can. I can guarantee you that.
That's and I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. As to how much cheaper, I don't know. And you bring up the idea of farmers and ranchers using their own equipment in some of these cases. I know that there has been a program that was just started in the last few years, and it has just kind of been more local, where the farmers can go through a training program, and they can absolutely do that to help. I mean, they're right. A lot of them see them start. They've got
they're
the
right
equipment.
there.
They
They
could
see
go
it.
out and put a stop to it, which has been forbidden before, and it is still forbidden, I guess, if you haven't had that special training. But but anyway, some good thoughts, good points. Top story, you are on the air. Good morning.
Good morning. My attitude about it is if we take it over and start harvesting the lumber off of it, then that's going to reduce the fire risk also.
You're absolutely right. And if we grazed it more, that would also do the same thing.
Correct.
And think of the number of jobs that it would create.
That's true.
So yeah, there's a lot of advantage to doing just that. 7360300. Top story, you're on the air.
Good morning, guys. Burley guy here. How you doing?
Oh, hey. Good, Burley guy. You got about 10 seconds.
All right, that's all I need, according to my wife. This fire we had in Oakley a few years ago, there was a rancher there with a bulldozer, and BLM and the Forest Service was fighting who was going to do what first, or that thing would have been put out. Thank you. Bye.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I've heard of those situations too. But what about lightning in the middle of the Frank Church
River of No
Return Wilderness area? You know, when that thing, there probably aren't many farmers and ranchers in those areas when that stuff occurs because, well, first of all, they can't be. No. We'll be right back on Top Story. 7360300 is the number to call here this morning on Top Story. So what do you think? Should we make an effort to take over the federal lands, take them back to the state? Should we make an effort to just be more involved in the management of them, or should we just leave things the way they are? I don't know as I'm really a fan of leaving things the way they are. I think taking over better management, more management of the land. And the people who have called in said, yeah, we should take them over. I think they have some good points. You know, one of the big concerns, as even the governor mentioned as he was leaving, was the cost of fighting fire. Well, on BLM land, where you have access to a lot of the farmers and ranchers who have equipment, who just happen to be there, that's one thing. I think we could increase grazing. We used to have more grazing than we have now. There's a concerted effort now by environmentalists to completely eliminate public lands grazing, which I think is a huge mistake. I think we should increase it because when you allow those grasses and that brush to grow, then that increases the fire danger and the fire hazards, and we have seen that come to fruition in the last few years. When we had the Murphy Complex fire out there, remember that part of that was because we had eliminated a lot of the grazing, and that eliminated a lot of the habitat of the sage grouse. And now that's one of the big fights that we have now, and Kelton Hatch will tell you that a lot of the fires and such that come through eliminates the habitat for the sage grouse, and now federal government is considering listing the sage grouse, and we have no concept. We have no idea of what restrictions will be put on us as the Magic Valley, as Southern Idaho, if that is listed. There will be some restrictions, some big restrictions on grazing, big restrictions on hunting, big restrictions on even access to a lot of the land that we now can get onto. And we need to consider that. And I think we need to, on the rare occasion that I drive up past Redfish Lake, you see all that dead timber there because of the tussock moth or the moth infestation.
Yeah, moth, and then there's that pine beetle.
Yeah, the pine beetle and such. And that is nothing but a huge fire waiting to happen. But yet environmental restrictions don't allow them to go in and harvest that timber, which is incredibly stupid. We allow places, things like the Sierra Club and some of these ultra-environmentalists to make these rules to lobby our representatives to make these rules that, oh, no, we can't do that. We have to let nature take its course. You know, and to see all that timber that's going to waste that could be, first of all, cleared out to eliminate the fire danger. Secondly, how many jobs could we have if we were to go in and get that timber? It's just good common sense to take care of your land. You don't allow your backyard to grow up into trash and bushes and weeds and say, oh, it's just nature taking its course. We don't do that. It causes what? Fire danger.
Well, fire danger.
In fact, there are rules against it in the city. You
Right.
can't just let your backyard grow up into weeds like we're letting a lot of our forests do. There are rules against it, but
Right.
for some reason, when you get... So I think that we could certainly do a better job of managing our lands. I think local management of it is always better than
We know our
than
own
federal
backyard.
We know our own backyard. We don't have people back in Washington, D.C. telling us how we ought to be doing things out here. Now, Interior Secretary...
Sally Jewell.
Sally Jewell will be here
She's visiting the
tomorrow.
West, yeah.
She will be looking at areas out here for on the sage grouse issue, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to try to get her on the show. I don't know if that's going to be possible or not. But here, she has to come out here and see the situation for herself, which kudos to her for doing that.
Right. There's certainly a lot on her plate.
But still, I don't care if coming out here on a whirlwind tour on a Tuesday morning is not going to give her a clear picture of what is actually happening here. And there are going to be both sides. There are going to be the environmentalists, and there's going to be the land managers who are tugging at her apron string, if I can use that, wanting her attention, say, look, here's the problem. No, here's the problem. No, here's the problem. So local management is always better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we can have more local management than what we've had, I think we're going to be a lot better off. But who knows?
Time will tell.
Time will tell. And
whoever wins the better argument, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. But it just, whenever you have control in a remote location, it's never as good than if you have people with boots on the ground right there making the decisions. And the military will tell you that, I'm pretty sure. And we have witnessed that here in the state of Idaho. Many other states have witnessed it. Whether or not it'll go that direction, I don't know. But the listing of the sage grouse could be devastating to southern Idaho's economy. Mm-hmm. And it's not just southern Idaho. It goes into Wyoming and
Nevada.
Takes up parts of several states.
Utah.
So we're looking at something here that could potentially be disastrous for us. I don't know. I kind of got onto that from management of the federal lands, but it is all related. So at any rate, we'll see what happens. And it's time now for the Huckabee Report, which is brought to you by Waddell & Reed, and you can give them a call at 736-6563. You can hear the Huckabee Report each weekday at this time, brought to you exclusively by Waddell & Reed. Laura Nelson, Josh Funk, and Steve Stanger are the financial advisors, and the number is 736-6563. Hey, we're in that time of year. You need a chainsaw or a leaf blower?
Sure, could use one. There's
Absolutely.
a lot of leaves on the lawn.
That's what I'm thinking. Clearwater Power Equipment has them. They not only have them, they service them. They sell them. They have parts. That's what they deal in, are Echo chainsaws and leaf blowers, and Husqvarna line of power equipment also. But the fact of the matter is, you're always better off to buy from a place that specializes in something than a place that specializes in everything. Because when you specialize in everything, just enough to be dangerous about most of the stuff you carry. But when you specialize in a couple of things, then you know all about it. And the folks at Clearwater Power Equipment have the Echo chainsaws and leaf blowers, and they're at 252 Washington Street. 734-7767 is the number. And if you got a big old mower that you need stored for the winter, they can help you there too. So give them a call or stop by and tell them that Kelly and Benito sent you.
Head on down.
Yeah, Mr. Huckabee mentioned something about Saturday Night Live and one of their longtime folks who appeared on Saturday Night Live dying. There was just this story that came through today I saw. Saturday Night Live has not been able to recover from the cast exodus that included the departure of a lot of longtime favorites, including Andy Samberg, Kristen Wiig, Bill Hader, Fred Armisen, Jason Sudeikis, and Seth Meyers. I just want to say Saturday Night Live has been waning for a long, long time. I think they were hanging on fairly well with Seth Meyers and Bill Hader and some of those. But when they left, Saturday Night Live is no longer viable. I have literally, and even earlier when Seth Meyers was still there and Hader and a lot of those people, my wife will record it and watch it later. And so I would sit there and watch it with her, and I would just purposely sit there and see how long it took me to laugh at something.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would go through the entire Saturday Night Live show and never crack a smile. It wasn't funny anymore.
It's hard to make you laugh, Kelly.
I mean, it's stupid. They get up there, they do these skits, they have no ending. They're not funny. Seth Meyers was pretty good. He was probably about the best part of the whole Saturday Night Live. Once in a blue moon, they would have a funny skit, but hardly ever. You know, I think it's time that they did away with Saturday Night Live and replaced it with something that we can laugh at.
Right.
You know, maybe the president could do a weekly thing or something. I don't know. Anyway.
I have to admit, I haven't seen SNL in a while either. I'll watch the little clips that come online. We have actually a few on our website you can watch.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I haven't watched it.
You're not missing anything. Okay, so there you go. Well, tomorrow we'll have Steve Millington with the Twin Falls Republicans.
All right.
And we'll have a great show tomorrow, so join us then. And thanks for sitting in today for Jill.
All right, I'll be back one more time.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow, folks. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. Goodbye. Bye, Benito.
Bye.
Wanted to say bye, Jill.
Bye.
She's not here.
She's not here.